temptations or trials. Why should we do that? Well, it's like he says, and Paul said earlier, God uses those to help us grow. The hard times that we face allow us to develop, and God helps us to grow through those and work in us. We know that some way, somehow, we may not know how or when or why, but some way or somehow God is going to use that suffering for our good. James recognized that, and he recognized that that's kind of confusing. But he told us, he said, ask God to give you the wisdom to understand that. Kind of sounds strange that we should be thankful to go through suffering, doesn't it? But when we do that, we know that God will use it for our good. He used it to strengthen our faith. I'm going to give you an example. I'm not going to give you the details. But there were several times when I was in college, I didn't know where I was going to get the money to pay my bills. I had no idea. But every single time, God provided. Some way, somehow. Sometimes it was through work. Sometimes it was through other means. But God always provided. Sometimes it was at the last possible second. But those lessons that I learned back then, those many years ago, have kept me going. From time to time, I've faced problems and difficulties, and I've thought, how am I going to pay for this? Where's the money going to come from? How am I going to live? But some way, somehow, God has always provided. And I look back on those times, and I'm reminded God is faithful. I grew through that. I've been through other hard times, other difficulties, and other problems that had nothing to do with finances, but God, I've seen how God has used those to help me to grow. And I think if you look at the times that you've trusted in Him, and He has seen you through the difficulties, how that's helped you to grow too, as well. James, in chapter 5 of the book of James, verses 7 through 17, encouraged his readers to be patient in suffering. And he likened it to a farmer who is patient. You know, the farmer can't control the weather. All they can do is they can go out and they can till the ground, they can plant the seed, they can prepare and do everything they can, but they can't make it rain. They can't make the sun shine. They can't make this happen or that happen. They're dependent upon the weather. And after a period of time, sure enough, the crop grows. And it's there. We need to hold on to our faith and our integrity, just like Job did, for example, back in the Old Testament. We try not to get angry with one another, by the way, because when we're to others that are facing the same suffering, examples given in our teacher's lesson about a person who's lost a child, and how that they can help others who are going through that same crisis in their life. They can be a comfort to other parents who have. In some ways, there is a kind of a relief when we encounter someone else who's been where we are, who's gone through what we are going through, whatever it might be, and has come through it successfully. We can be an encouragement. We can use our past experiences of how God brought us through a time of trial and difficulty and suffering, pain, whatever it might be, and use that to help encourage others. It's important for us to be there for people who are suffering. It's called the power of presence. Job's friends demonstrated that at first. Now, when you read on through, I just finished this week reading through the book of Job in my daily Bible readings. His friends, and I noticed this when I was reading through, and our teacher's lesson kind of reminded me of that again. But Job's friends, we're often very critical of them, trying to straighten him out. But if you look and see what they did at first, they did the right thing at first. They didn't finish out the right way, but they started out right. They came, they saw him, they mourned with him in silence for about a week. Just their presence that was there. Sometimes just our presence of being there with someone who's going through a difficult time can be an encouragement to them. We may not know exactly what to do, but sometimes the best thing to do is just to get to them and listen. And we can help them by just listening. Now, Job's friends, after they did that, after they sat there and mourned with him, they weren't very helpful after that. That part was helpful. But then they started talking. And when they started talking, the problem that they had was they thought they had the answers. And they were going to fix Job. They were going to fix what was broken in him. They were going to straighten him out and help him come to his senses. There's a lesson there too. Don't try to fix people. We sometimes think we've got to have just the right answer and say just the right thing or give them some biblical homily and tell them this is what is what. And in doing so, sometimes we make a bigger mistake because we find out later that we didn't know what we were talking about. Don't try to fix people. Now, listen to them. And later, whenever they are ready,